John Cooper Clarke, ladies and gentlemen. So this is where you're writing your memoirs, right?
Yeah, right here in the dining room of my home in Essex.
This is your spot where you write?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, when you're writing a memoir, like I was trying to write a memoir about my own life, but it was tricky because, like, where do you end the story of your life when you're still living?
Well, the problems I envisage is this, mainly. I never wanted to write a memoir in the first place. I always thought leave everything up to the imagination. That is the position of every poet the world has ever known. Leave everything up to the imagination. Drop a few hints, yes, I had tuberculosis as a child. I'm no stranger to the Chinaman's nightcap. And that gives you a kind of broad brush of the poetical ruined idyll that I inhabit, and that'll do me. But I'm getting pumped for information, factual information, pedantic, factual stuff, the kind of stuff. But I'm not on trial. The way I figure it is this: I'm not on trial for murder. So, the facts really, who really wants to know? And I figure that rather than a pedantic trudge through the turgid factual accuracies of my life, I thought more kind of try to instill the flavour of any given moment whenever it occurs. Do you know what I'm saying? A kind of broad
like just
brush.
kind of vignettes of certain periods of your life?
It's a kind of impressionistic approach to things. Because if I ain't led any more of a, I didn't have any more of a, well, I don't know whether, yes, I did. I'm a very old person. So therefore I have a lot to talk about. So I have to be very broad brush about some of it, whilst homing in on other aspects. For instance, my first job was a job that ceased to exist.
What was it?
In 1960, a bookies runner. I was a bookies runner when I was at school. Thanks to my dad, he got me involved in the world of the degenerate.
He had some debts.
Yeah, I have a son
who
is, you can't prosecute him. He's underage. He can take your messages to the bookie without fear of reprimand. And that was the whole point of it in those days. Every 12-year-old, all of my fellow 12-year-olds in the neighbourhood were, engaged in these kind of practices. But the bookies runner was the apex of that sort of semi-legal, well, actually illegal world. But I took a drop, I was rendered unemployed before I even left school. Before I even left school, I tasted the whip of unemployment. Because one minute I was pissing pure gold, kind of taking these bets into these illegal bookies, with all of that. In that, I'm not going to go into it, but there are several streams of income involved in being a bookies runner. And I was pissing pure gold. So when
he's got a brand new bike.
Absolutely. I was Jimmy Cagley over there. I was going to school in a camel hair overcoat. Yeah, people had me as a kind of an example of private enterprise gone mad. And so with that in mind, the worst thing that ever happened to me was courtesy of, I can't remember what it was, Harold Macmillan or Harold Wilson. I think it was 1960, so it would have been Harold Macmillan, who legalised off-track betting. Before that, you were okay betting at the track, but you couldn't go to a bookie.
All these shops like Ladbrokes and Paddy Power.
There were none of those. And the first one I ever remember, the first legal betting shop, the first emblem of my decline as a 12-year-old bookies runner, the first emblem of my decline was erected by the late Albert Finney. Fabulous actor, great actor. He starred in Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, Tom Jones, Miller's Crossing, early Coen Brothers movie, Wolf, and many movies. Great actor, Albert Finney. He's from my hometown, Salford, Manchester. And his dad was an illegal bookie. His dad had been an illegal bookie. And the first legal bookies that I ever saw with a huge, and it was real, like in your face, respectable. It was on a place called Whit Lane in Salford. And it was Albert Finney, because in those days it was very fashionable to call your firstborn son after your dad, so he had the same name as your dad, kind of thing.
Yeah, my oldest brothers.
Yeah, there's a kind of fashion for that. So Albert Finney's dad was Albert Finney, and who'd been an illegal bookie. Finally, had been legitimised by whatever the incumbent. I think it was the Macmillan administration, Conservative government, legalised off-track betting. And the first legal betting shop I ever saw was this beautiful bottle green, you know, to echo the Irish nature of equestrian sports in this country. You know, the Irish there would be no equestrian sports in the British Isles without the Irish, no doubt about it. They are the horse breeders par excellence, and trainers and jockeys. There would be no horse racing without the Irish. So, and you know, Salford is a very, you know, or was then a mixture of Irish Jewish, of which I am an inheritor of this lineage. You know, Irish Jewish is very common kind of mixture. When they built the canals in the Industrial Revolution in Salford, you know, they had to import labour from Ireland, the navigators, and they were the skilled labourers that constructed all the canals. And given that, inside a year, the population of Salford tripled with Irish. So,
I just played in Salford at that beautiful new theater.
The Lowry.
That's it, yeah.
It's a beautiful.
They cheered when I brought your name up.
I'm from there. As is, anyway, back to Albert Finney. So the first legal betting shop I ever saw had emblazoned on a bottle green glass frontage, and then written in diagonal script in gold lettering, Albert Finney, turf accountants. You know, so that
turf accountants.
Yeah, that's what that was the polite name for a bookie when it went legal.
And that was Albert Finney's dad?
It was Albert Finney's dad, yeah, yeah.
Have you ever been a gambler?
I have been a gambler. I inherited that from my dad, obviously. But I was rescued from degenerate gambling from being a bookies runner at such an early age, because I got a glimpse at what it was to be a degenerate gambler. And I wouldn't describe my dad as actually a degenerate gambler. He learned his lesson, thank God, very, very quickly. But he did have a preponderancy, as do most, people with a Jewish heritage. You know, like the Chinese, he did have a preponderancy towards gambling. And but luckily he exposed me, and I don't think my dad was very, psychological, really, a guy. He wasn't like, he wouldn't have worked this out, but Dr. Spock would have approved. What he did was, and we did suffer for a little bit from my dad. My dad got in over his head. He was a blue-collar guy, he was an engineer, but he did enjoy betting on horses and the football pools and things like this. But he started going to the dog races in Salford, a place called Albion, the Albion dog track. And they erected a casino. Now, the dog track is a very quick way to lose money.
Yeah, we got dog tracks in Florida when I grew up with them.
It's a very quick way. You could lose your house in 3 minutes. And I'm not going to go into the ins and outs and the vagaries, of which there are many, of dog racing. But long story short, my dad got in over his head with the gambling, and the irony was not lost on us. We always lived in apartments. This is the first split-level house I've ever lived in my life. We always lived in apartments. Converted tenement apartments and that as well, not purpose-built. So we were sitting in this place. My dad was wiring up the entire British Isles with his electrical engineering skills, He was a high roller in the working class world, as high as you could get working class without actually becoming middle class, if you see what I mean. It's not so important to Americans, I know, but he was a blue-collar guy, safe to say. But he got in over his head. After the dog track, they erected this casino, was built by a guy called Gus Demi. Gus Demi owned all of the betting shops in the area, and you know, my dad was friendly with his son Selwyn Demi, and they started going to the casino. If only it had been the cathedral. Freudian slip. He started
rolling dice. By
he started going to the casino. We got in over his head, but it only lasted one season, and we were cut off. Our electricity was cut off. I was a kid then, and I thought it was really like exciting. I loved cowboy movies, you know. We were like living. We had an open fire. We were cooking beans. We were cooking beans in a saucepan on an open fire. And I'm like, yeah, man, cowboy.
Home on the range.
Yeah, home on the range. Yeah, exactly. But my mum didn't see the funny side. She was like George, you know, and he's like, yeah, I know. Everybody else in the world's got fucking She didn't swear, nobody did like that to that degree. Everybody else got bloody electricity in this country, thanks to you and your pals. And here we are, sat cooking over an open fire without any television. And it's yeah. It never happened again. But it was an early lesson in degenerate gambling when I was a bookies runner, because I would see these guys losing time after time after time. They enjoyed it. They liked to lose. They won. There was a note of disappointment. You know, they didn't see it as money. They won. They didn't see it as money. You know, they're not like you and me. I mean, I like a bet. I go to the track. My best friend's Simon Basil, well, not my best friend, but one of my best friends, Simon Basiljet, the head of the jockey club. He's the guy that shows the Queen around at Royal Ascot. He's doing that at the moment, you know. He's a friend of ours, gets us into any race meeting we like. It's a great day out. I won fucking 1.5 large last year.
Really?
Inside 12 minutes. I walked in there. I put my... £1,500, £1,500 on a rank outside.
On what, a dog or a horse?
Horse.
What was the horse's name?
I can't even. It's some Maduro Loco or something, some Hispanic kind of name. I deliberately forgot the name so I wouldn't bet on it again. It was such an outside. I just thought, it's part of the fun. Yeah, part of the fun. You know, and bingo, wow. Everybody, they were on me like a fucking rash in that tent. We were in the jockey club, you know, lobster, champagne, Veuve Clicquot, glug, lobster. Real top dollar shit. And the track's just there. See where that yard is there? Yeah. Just there, the track where the horses go. You know, there they come. Beautiful day out. You've been to the track much?
I went in Hong Kong. Was the
smell of those horses.
Beautiful.
I love a horse.
Horse racing track.
I love a horse. I do love them.
Yeah.
I like it as
I like watching them run.
I love watching them run.
I've never been a gambler.
I'm a little bit.
I love.
I'm a little bit. Gives you some emotional involvement. You know what I mean? But only for that. But just by accident, then 12 minutes, I won 1,500 quid. With all this free food and champagne coming at me at the same time. What a great day out at the races that was. We've all had our moments, me and Evie, you know. We love going to the races. I love it. It's the smell of those horses.
Where do you go, out here?
We go Newmarket, Sandown Park, and the Cheltenham Gold Cup. All those nice events. I like Newmarket the best. It's a flat race, and it's, you know, you can see them all the way around the circuit. If you've got a pair of binoculars, you can really track the horse all the way around. You know, there's no.
I told you I just watched that Kubrick movie, The Killing, it's about a heist at a horse racing track.
Yeah.
Brilliant film.
Yeah, great picture.
So when you're...
It's Sterling Hayden in that.
Yes.
It's a great picture.
He's the one that puts it all together.
Excuse me while I take a pic. It's Thingy Decker in it. Sydney. I'll think of the cast in a minute. It's a great picture.
Great picture. Okay, well, I'm sipping coffee. John Cooper Clarke's house in Colchester, Sussex. Beautiful place. We just had a lovely meal. Beautiful, I had Malaysian food and Singapore noodles. It was wonderful. Met John's wife, his daughter. I'm just filling air while the man takes a pee. And Big Brother is watching you. I am enjoying this coffee. The table where the man works. Where all the genius ideas are invented. Lekker.
Here it comes now. The fast fingers, the expert eyes, and the same old how do you do? Disgust is justice, done disguise. He wants a word with you. His problems at the end. The mouth needs exercise. The last thing I need is another friend. I don't wanna be nice. I don't wanna be nice. I think it's clever to swear. There seek some sound advice. I will look elsewhere. Your face is an obvious case. I wouldn't put it about. This is neither the time or the space to sort your problems out. What you see is what you get. You only live twice. A friend in need is a friend in debt. I don't wanna be nice. No, we never met before. I'm very happy to say, far from perfect strangers. I like to keep it that way. I'm not your psychoanalyst. I'd rather talk to mice. You're so easy to resist. I don't wanna be nice. I don't wanna be nice. I think it's clever to swear. I would seek some sound advice. I would look elsewhere. Your face is an obvious case. I wouldn't put it about. This is neither the time or the place to sort your problems out. What you see is what you get. You only live twice. A friend in need is a friend in debt. I don't wanna be nice.
Here he comes.
Right, that's kid.
No problem, brother.
God, it takes me longer to piss than shit now. It's not running.
Yeah, we're still running.
Edit that.
So like, I'm curious about the memoir because I told you I was trying to write a book about my life, and I've put all that on hold. I was working on it for years, and now I'm working on a new book inspired by my new album, where each chapter is going to be a different city around the world.
That's great. See, you're doing it right.
And I'm writing like my personal story, my relationship.
Yeah, but you've got a deflective technique. You've got already it's at once removed. It's you in a particular town. So already you've got something else to talk about rather than just you. Now the
Well, it's
pressure
really
is on.
difficult to tell your
the
life
thing
story
it
is what I found.
difficult.
Instead of
It is
like,
difficult. I
where
think-
this way I can take my
I
best
think it is
stories
difficult.
of these places,
I
and
think
then
it is difficult.
when I finish this, I think
Because
I'll go back and
you don't want to
revisit
talk. You don't want to talk about you. You don't want to talk about you for two reasons. Whatever it is about you that people dig, you can't know. You can't be allowed to know what that is. Otherwise, you become a self-parody, and you kind of manipulate it. There's all sorts of reasons why an artist shouldn't know what their appeal is. But all you gotta know is that you do have that. You've got this thing about you that you can't know, that everybody likes, but you can't know it. So you can't assault your own mythology. That is the main thing about any autobiography. But I always take it into account. I'd rather read a biography than an autobiography for a start, because any autobiography, they're going to be writing themselves in as the hero of the piece.
Right.
Who wouldn't?
I know I'm the hero of all my stories.
Exactly. Of course you are. You're the star of your own movie. What is important to you ought to be important to everybody else. But that ain't necessarily the case, I don't think, for judging from personal experience. And I know that I enjoy biographies a lot more than I enjoy autobiographies. There are exceptions. It's not a rigid kind of written in stone kind of thing, but broad brush. I'd rather read a biography, a researched biography, where insight is involved and all those human skills, that don't take personal vanity into consideration. And yet that just by virtue of the fact that this person is writing this person's memoir, they're already in some way fascinated by that person. You wouldn't write a memoir of somebody that you weren't interested in. But nevertheless, you've got this kind of distance, and you've got this kind of this literary device of making it geographical. How this particular geographical situation filters through the mind of Tom Rhodes. So it's not just about you; it's about you in a position, in a place that you wouldn't perhaps not ordinarily be. So there's always some third thing to discuss. Whereas if you've got people wanting to know about your very psychology, the very thing that I avoid in myself, you know what I mean? I don't ever look at anything I do psychologically, obviously. I would lose every mojo I ever had if I did that. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why for me it's kind of a very difficult thing to do, because I don't want to... I can only convey my own obsessions in the language at my disposal, but I can't tell anybody anything about the real me, or the psychological reason for sometimes I give it a go, and it always sounds like trite, but why wouldn't it be trite? I'm guessing. I don't think... Who thinks of themselves psychologically? I don't think of myself in any way. I'm the last normal person alive. I judge everybody else psychologically. I'm the fucking person who wants to know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's weird to sort of be even interested in what it is that makes yourself sick. You can't know that. You can't know it.
Well, there's got to be.
I'm sure you understand what I'm saying.
100%, and I've been breezing through this.
I tell you, you said it best. Bill Withers. I seen Bill Withers in an interview once, and he said, and this guy said, how do you write these songs? These wonderful songs, inspiring in every way. And he said that he was a very articulate man, in the same way that Barry White. Two people that I've always really articulate. Anyway, Bill Withers, he said, he said the skill of writing a song. He was very precise in his language. To write a song involves a kind of magic that I don't want to interfere with. I never heard anything put better than that. You could apply that to any kind of artistic endeavour, couldn't you?
Yeah.
It involves a kind of magic that I don't want to interfere with. So in other words, it's a conduit. All the best people say that.
I love Bill
Even
Withers.
though you would
Who is
maybe,
he and what does he mean to you?
Bill
Withers. Use me up. Grandma's hands. You ever the poetry in Grandma's hands? I'm not even black. I listen to that song and I have a black grandmother.
I know, yeah, exactly.
You know, like he transports you.
He's a sensational songwriter. Sensational.
So to tell my stories of different places around the world, it's been pretty easy. I think I'll go back and revisit the memoir one day. But I think to just limit it to the best short stories instead of trying to tell your whole life story with connecting everything and.
Well, that's the pressure I'm up against here.
Yeah.
I've got my lovely editor, lovely though she is. She wants to put it in some kind of chronological order, but I don't think of things in those ways, really.
Is she trying to steer you to, like, you know?
I can't blame her.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like,
to be honest, she's saving me a lot of words. You know, the thing that makes her, you know, nobody's perfect, but the thing that makes her bad makes her good. You know, she's kind of, otherwise it's going to be this thick. You know, we'll knock down, in an afternoon, we'll knock down 20,000 words to 4,000 words. Just through me refining the language, you know, because we're starting off from a position of recording conversations. I just spout off about something, we get the main facts down. It gets typed up, you know. It goes into print.
Oh, good. So you're not sitting here typing.
So I'm like, no, nothing, none of that. So then I look at what we talked about there, and I look at how I would put it. A better way to put it that will save time, space.
Yeah.
Rainforest.
Well, the one autobiography I love is Miles by Miles Davis, and And there's a Harper's Index fact about this book that the word motherfucker appears 333 times in this book. So he's telling a story about, like, Charlie Parker, like when they were playing the Cotton Club.
Oh, sometimes
in Harlem. All these guys were doing heroin. Miles Davis hadn't started doing heroin yet, and all these jazz musicians had rich white women giving them money. So he tells this story about Charlie Parker's in a taxi. He's in a taxi with Charlie Parker. And Charlie Parker's on heroin, eating fried chicken, getting blown by his rich white, benefactor. And the way Miles Davis tells the story in the book is, and then the motherfucker did this, and then the motherfucker did that, and then the motherfucker's sitting there eating chicken with this white bitch, and then he had to stop the taxi and get out, and then he didn't speak to Charlie Parker for 10 years after that. But it's
now they pay him for that kind of publicity. If that was the rap,
but
they'd pay him to say.
I love that it's in his own words, so he just keeps saying, and then the motherfucker did this.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So
there's very few people. That's why I like these biographies that are kind of through a medium. The Keith Richards book, Life, you can tell that's through a medium.
Great
because
book.
Nobody writes like they speak. You'd have to be a genius.
Yeah.
Nobody writes the way they speak. You couldn't possibly do that.
Yeah.
And yet this is all in Keith's voice, and you hear it in his tone. You know, man, I don't fucking know. Motherfucker drops a fucking note. Fucking you were off. You're reading it in his voice all the time, you know. And I got one in there, Paul Anka, My Way. It's just fucking great. You know it. That's how he said it. And he's here. He is. He's my fucking go-to guy. I don't.
Paul Anka's your go-to guy.
You know, there he is.
Dramatically yours. That's the name of it.
Dianically yours. Dianically, you know his first hit, Diana. You know what I'm saying? Teenage Millionaire. He was an early influence, so I got it. That's why he's out, you know. But he was in with the Rat Pack when he was 19, because everybody thought rock and roll was going to be all over in 18 months.
Yeah.
So anybody that could sing, and he could really sing, you know, they all did it. Bobby Darin, you know, all of them went that supper club route. Even Sam Cooke, you know, they went through that, you know, Copacabana kind of period, Vegas, because they really figured that was the only thing open to them when rock and roll had died in a year's time, They would still be able to carry one of the old tunes respectably. But his book is written from that, through an intermediary, really, really good. So what I'm doing is I'm doing it through an intermediary and then just narrowing it down, just knocking out the dead wood.
Yeah. I love biographies and autobiographies. I love reading those more than anything else because I the life journey of people and where they turn things around. And so what do you think was your defining moment where you just things went in the right direction? Was there a choice? Was there
I could take it back
quintessential moment?
Well, I could take it back. I've had 2 bites of the apple. How many people can say this? But people see me now as a kind of somebody who's got back some of the kudos I had many years ago. But the real truth is, I never had a higher profile than I do now. Because punk rock over the years, punk rock was a very small world, and it only lasted 2 years. Anything after that, it wasn't really punk rock anymore, like you'd understand it, kind of, the force of nature that it was when it first happened with the Ramones, and the CBGB's thing over in New York, and even Los Angeles wasn't immune to punk rock. It was a thing. It was an American thing in the first place. Those garage bands on the Nuggets album. You know what I mean? That's where the roots. But the first time I ever heard the word punk rock was applied to the Ramones, who ever since have been really. I don't think there's anything better than them. For me, I could listen to their albums really for the rest of my life. Marvelous. And so because of that, I was working in the world of, I must have told you this before, I was working in the world of cabaret at the time. There was no alternative cabaret or alternative anything. If you wanted to make it in show business, there was 2 ways of doing it. You could have a pop hit, or you could sell your sorry ass as some sort of comedian around the cabaret circuit. And that's what you were doing. And that's what I started to do. And the first guy that gave me any cash money for doing what I do was the much reviled, the late Mr. Bernard Manning.
You told me this story.
Yeah, he has a special place in my heart.
I love this story because he is
anathema
for the non-English listener.
Yeah,
Bernard Manning was a very well-known comedian in England, but people revile him now because he did a lot of racist jokes. Like he would say the black fella, and
Yeah, but they always take him out of context. The main victim of Bernard, like a lot of those northern comedians, it's a very cruel world, the industrial north of England. No quarter is ever asked or given, and Bernard Manning himself, a quarter Jewish Catholic, fat slub. The main target for his humour, 88% of the time, is himself. It's about how he can't get it up anymore. He's too fat to fuck. No women fancy him anyway because he's a fat fuck. You know what I mean? Who wouldn't hate Cassius Clay if they were a fat, sweaty fuck that can't?
But it's funny.
But seriously, it was all about laugh it off. It was all about laugh it off. He didn't have a vicious bone in his body, really.
And he gave you your first break.
He gave me my first break, but only because I read a particular poem to him. The first time I asked him, I was slugging my sorry ass around. I thought, I'm not going to start right in the city centre in Jerry Harris's Piccadilly Club or Fufu's Palace or the New Luxor Club or Fagan's or Sinatra's. I'm not going to start at the top. I'm going to go around the fringes of Manchester. I'm going to go up to Collyhurst, to the graveyard of show business itself, the Embassy Club, proprietor, the late Bernard Manning. So I wasn't expecting a very, his reputation went before him. He cultivated himself as a hate figure. If he ever did anybody a good turn, which he did frequently, he would threaten them with physical violence if they ever told anybody about it. His whole shtick was about being an asshole. And anybody that ever said any different had their legs broken. It was in his interest to be seen as an asshole. Yeah. So I wasn't expecting a good reception. I said, Mr. Manning, I said, I'm trying to break into show business. And what do you do? I write poetry, Mr. Manning. He says, they don't like poetry here. They don't like poetry. Half of them can't read. They don't like poetry here, kid. Do yourself a favour, get lost. So I'm like, no, it's not like, Shakespeare or nothing, Mr. Manning. It's about Manchester, around and about, Now, I knew that Bernard Manning started his show business career as a crooner with a dance band called the Phil Moss Orchestra, and I knew that he would be familiar with a Manchester Mecca dance hall. It was a chain of dance halls, Mecca. Nothing Islamic about it, but Mecca, run by the Morleys family. Anyway, that's the business end of it. But it was a sprung dance floor, real high-end dance floor. Like the kind of thing you might find in Atlantic City, circa 1958. And Bernard, this is how he got into show business, as a singer with the Phil Moss Orchestra. So I knew that he would know this place that I had just written this poem about. And the poem concerns, it's in my first book of poetry, 10 Years in an Open Neck Shirt. And this one's called Salome. And the line goes like this. It's about a chick who frequents a dance hall, a kind of, typical, organza dress, multiple petticoats, beehive hair, stiletto shoes. You get the idea. So the line that I thought would get him was this one. So I'm saying, it's nothing high-flown, Mr. Manning. They don't like poetry here. Half of them can't read, blah, blah, blah. No, I said, now listen to this, Mr. Manning, please. 4 minutes of your time, I said. And it's about a punch-up. A fight starts up in this Mecca dance hall, the Ritz. Right, and there's this chick, Salome, after the biblical dancer herself, head of John the Baptist, all those echoes. Salome. So anyway, it goes like this, in the middle of the poem. When the punch-up ended, she was lying on the deck. She fell off her stiletto heels and broke her fucking neck. And that was the two lines. That was the couplet. Oh yeah, they'll get that one. Yeah, all right, I'll give you 20 minutes. I'll give you 20 minutes, £30. So he's the first guy that gave me the equivalent of a weekly wage for my dad, who was a skilled engineer. He gave me that for 20 minutes. So if anybody encouraged me in my career as a professional poet, there was one man and one man alone.
Bernard
Manning.
So how did you fall in love with poetry growing up in Manchester?
Well, that happened in school. We had a good... one year we had this teacher, John Malone, funnily enough, no relation. John Malone, the Catholic school. John Malone, he was a rugged outdoor type, real Hemingway. He climbed mountains, he went skiing, he fucking surfing, sea fishing for marlin in the Florida Keys. All of this, it was a real kind of outdoor nut. He would come back every September with a different injury incurred, falling into an icy crevasse in the fucking higher Himalayas. That kind of real dude, real kind of,
Shark bite
But he had another side, the side we saw in English literature. John Malone, he had a weakness for the romantic poetry of the 19th century, The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson, etc. Tommy Atkins by Rudyard Kipling, Vitae Lampada by Sir Henry Newbolt. All this real classic shit. Byron, Keats, Shelley, all those guys. Coleridge. We read Rime of the Ancient Mariner. He didn't tell us it was about no narcotics or nothing, but we figured something was going on. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Later I found out the dude was on some kind of dope, and I inquired further. but that's a whole article in itself. I blame John Malone for my subsequent lapse into irreclaimable drug dependency. But aside from that, he also literalised me, if that's the word. You know, I was kind of... If one guy ever civilised our class, which was a bunch of savages, it was a tough school. Put it this way, we had our own coroner.
That's a tough school.
But that guy civilised the entire class with his love of 19th century romantic verse.
Well, I told you I've been reading about the life of Byron.
Yeah, well, it's right in the park, in the same end of the park.
So what did you think of the Romantic poets?
I loved them.
Yeah?
Right from the start, yeah. Yeah.
Did you know about like the life of Byron and that he was debaucherous and
I kind of read about him later, you know, but it came out, you know, sometimes. I'll tell you what really gripped me. The one that really gripped me was, apart from Lady of Shalott, 48,000 pages of it, which we had to learn off by heart. Lady of Shalott, Alfred Lord Tennyson, Tommy Atkins by Rudyard Kipling, Gunga Din anything by Rudyard Kipling. I love that stuff, you know, and that's really informed my work ever since. That rigid rhyme structure, you know, that mathematical rhythm. You know, if you ain't got music, if all you got is words, you've got to kind of stick to the program. And I think that's where the dynamic of poetry, for me, that's where it lives. And consequently, the one that got me on the road of poetry, though, was by Edgar Allan Poe, and it was called The Bells. And it was sensational, repetition, banging it home, like the insistence of church bells themselves. Absolutely. To the end it becomes clangorous and you want it to stop. And it just stops at the right time. And that's the genius of Edgar Allan Poe. He knew how to drive people mad. He knew what drove people mad, as you can see in his books. So after reading that, you know, I saw on the movies, I lived opposite a movie theatre called the Rialto, and it was around, must have been 1960. There was on the movies was The Fall of the House of Usher, put out by American International Pictures, produced by Samuel Z. Arkoff. You remember those movies? They also did those beach party movies with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. You know, those beach blanket bingo, muscle beach parties. There was a million of them. They were all put out by AIP, American International Pictures. They're great movies, but they did a whole slew of them. Roger Corman, he did a whole load of biker movies as well with Bruce Dern. That firm introduced the likes of Bruce Dern and Jack Nicholson, you know, into the mainstream of movies. You know, The Wild Angels with Bruce Dern, Nancy Sinatra and Bruce Dern. You know that movie? Mm-mm. No, Roger Corman, all put out by AIP. But another branch of AIP was a kind of mock Hammer, very much in the manner of the British Hammer films, the very popular Dracula, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. You know, in the manner of that very rich, lurid colour palette, you know, unreal blood, the colour of ketchup, you know what I mean? But it didn't matter, it was still terrifying. There was just so much of it, you just had to fucking puke. You know, it didn't matter whether it was real or not. But he put on The Fall of the House of Usher. Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and he was right over the marquee, Edgar Allan Poe. So I sneaked in. I was only, 69? I was 11. And 12, no, I was 12. I went there, I was tall for my age, blagged in. It was an adults-only movie. I watched it through a crack in my fingers. Vincent Price as Roderick Usher. You know, real lurid horror. And then I read the book. I got it out of the library, The Tales of Mystery and Imagination by Edgar Allan Poe. And that movie was 2 pages, like that, from a 2-page, so rich is the story, you know. Unbelievable. They made a movie out of 2 pages of Edgar Allan Poe. And then I found out, you know, this is what really got me on the road of professional poetry. Then I found out that, I was a very inquisitive, bookish child, nerd, sick, tubercular, in the house all the time. So then I followed it up. And I found out that Charles Baudelaire had put his own career to one side for several years in order to, so taken was he, in order to translate the entire works of Edgar Allan Poe into French. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know from Edgar Allan Poe at the time. They were running concurrently, but Baudelaire was like, no, you got to read this guy. And he put his own stuff on to one side and translated the fucking his entire catalogue up to that point. So then reading that, I thought, well, that Charles Baudelaire must be really something. And after that, when I read about Charles Baudelaire and read his poetry in print, well, that's the thing that finally, after that, I was going to be a professional poet for the rest of my life.
Because of Baudelaire?
Yeah.
Like Flowers of Evil?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That was what I was going to do for the rest. I thought, there's a guy, lives in a city, all he does, he just writes poetry about various aspects of the city and the people who live in it, in this way that they could never express, you know what I mean? And he was genuinely popular poet, you know what I mean? For all that he was a dandy and a rake, the people of Paris really even appreciated him in his own time, up to a point. More so since he died, obviously. That's the nature of poetry. You've got to die. But, he did. Minimum requirement.
I'm really fascinated with the history of the industrial north of England, and especially Manchester.
Yeah,
I started collecting these
good
books
story.
that I've found. There's these orange books.
Great story.
They're called like Left Bank Book Club. You ever seen these books?
Well, this is, if you get into that, sooner or later, it will lead you to the work of The Fall. You couldn't avoid it. If you were seriously interested in the culture of the industrial northwest of England, you couldn't avoid that band.
The band, The Fall.
Well, Mark Smith, the songwriter and singer.
I told you.
I know it. You give it a while. Let a few years go. But,
no, like in the newspaper,
but if you read up on the Brontes,
Manchester,
but if you read up on the Brontes and the Peterloo Massacre and all of this shit, you can't avoid Smith. He's the historian, punk historian par excellence. He's a very specific guy. Listen, better people than me and you have been absolutely, like I was saying about Shakespeare, you disappear down that hole. I've known geniuses that just have become so besotted with the work of Mark Smith that they've never been seen again. They see the world through that prism. Why do you think the Smiths are called the Smiths?
Why?
After Mark Smith, the singer with The Fall.
Serious?
Absolutely, yeah. He was obsessive about the guy.
Seriously?
Oh, his every movie had a dossier on him. Smithy, what Morrissey.
Yeah.
Oh, obsessed by the guy.
Huh.
Smithy, yeah. Oh, I could tell you about Smithy for years. We sort of grew up together. But I was older than him. Always. And now more than ever, now he's dead.
Well, like the Guardian newspaper started in Manchester, and it was a communist newspaper.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a communist newspaper. What it was, which is what it ceased to be actually for me, it was when it was in Manchester. It was a hard-nosed platform for any controversial opinion, from the left or the right. It wasn't as polarised. It was pre-fascist, so it was like any controversial opinions they could air their grievances in the Manchester. It was called the Manchester Guardian. But then it moved out of London and it just became kind of colonised as a kind of vaguely left-wing vegetarian thing. You just know what their opinion is on everything. There's no reason. There's no reason to read it. You know, it's like, it's almost as bad as the New York Times. I mean, you must admit, the New York Times.
I enjoy both of those newspapers.
Do you do? I don't think they employ anybody over 17.
You might be right about that.
I'm sure not. None of them seem to have any perspective, just the ability to support or condemn. They've got two settings. Support
or condemn.
Or condemn.
Well,
there's no nuance. Because there's nobody over 17 works for it. You know, once you've had a couple of divorces,
well, I see this
your
magazine.
worldview becomes
this
a little
magazine you
bit
love,
more.
The Spectator. Tell me about the Spectator. Why do you love the Spectator?
Well, the Spectator has been going since the 1700s. And it's just, again, it's like the Guardian, it's always been the repository for controversial opinion. Whatever's going against the tide, or with it, if you're erudite enough to go with it, they'll put that in as well. But it's against the tide. And given that the tide in this country is really, and has been for the last 30 years, you know, irredeemably liberal, let's say, liberal, this has always taken the kind of, you know, are you sure, kind of reticence. If it had a flavour, I would say reactionary, you know, in the best possible way. But it has great articles that you wouldn't see anywhere else. Like I say, this thing about Pitcairn Islands.
Yeah, so tell me about that.
It's just unbelievable. It's just, incest is rife. It's a mile long.
Like everybody's got, what was the mutineer's name?
Fletcher Christian.
Fletcher Christian. So everybody's got Fletcher Christian.
Yeah,
blood on that island.
there's only 2 surnames in the whole island.
So he must have been in paradise. He's just screwing all the
so they're all
natives
they're all congenital idiots and fucking child rapists.
Oh, that ain't good.
But there ain't nothing anybody can do about it because they rely on they for any supplies at all. They rely on passing ships that every few months. And they can't, because of the rocks and what have you, they can't get right in there. So they have to rely on the physical stamina of the menfolk to paddle these longboats out to these ships and get loaded up with the stuff they need and bring it back, because it's just, no woman is capable of such strength, you know. So therefore, seeing as the men are, you know, life and death situation. A man dies in that situation. It's a fucking catastrophe. You're not going to get anything to eat. So it's back to basics. So naturally, the place is run like men just run everything. They can fuck who they like, you know what I mean? And they have been, you know, their own daughters, you know, over centuries. So you can only imagine the kind of, everybody's got filthy secrets, you know. They can't say nothing about it, otherwise they won't get any food. They're totally reliant on each other. Like the population's something like 88 on an island that's 1.5 miles long and 1 mile across.
Wow.
So you're never going to avoid anybody. You know, if you say something bad about somebody, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be able to say anything about it. They don't have cars. They don't have roads.
I had this, I learned this recently, and I've been, I've tried a bit about it, but I'll just tell you the information. You know that bodies exhibit? You ever seen that? It's an exhibit, touring exhibit. And it's like, it's corpses with the skin peeled off, and they're all in different poses.
What, real?
Yeah, and it's in London right now. It's all over the world, and it's...
Got a reefer in there.
I do, yeah.
Oh, God.
Can you enlighten?
Is that all right?
I found out that the bodies used in the bodies exhibit are executed Chinese prisoners.
From when? The railroad?
No. From recent.
Oh, no.
And because we all look the same with our skin peeled off. and they're all in different poses and
What,
stuff.
they don't have slanting eye sockets?
No.
There goes another myth.
But I was thinking about it that if that catches on, that could be the future. Like, you know, you don't want to because these are like some of these people have been executed for their political opinion, so you don't want to. If this catches on, you know, you don't want to become a part of the exhibit. So everyone will keep their mouth shut. Like you're saying on this island, you want to toe the line so you can get food.
It sounds like hell on earth.
Yeah.
And yet people think of it as an Eden. What it's about the dichotomy between people's idea of an island life. And she even factors in Desert Island Discs on it, you know. Everybody thinks it's kind of an idyllic situation, you know, but think about it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So you did this show, Desert Island Discs. You get to choose 8 records that you would bring with you.
Yeah.
So what were the 8 records that you would bring with you on
Well, I shouldn't blow this before the event, really, but I'm going to guess because I changed it. I changed it on the day.
They'll never know. I don't think.
But here's a few of the ones that got either chosen or not. A Quiet Place by Garnet Mims. Followed by I Wonder Why by Dion and the Belmonts.
You played me some Dion, live Dion and the
Yeah, that's right. Live
when we
at
were doing
Madison
your
Square
tour in
Garden.
America, it was incredible.
Right. Great record. Live at Madison Square Garden, 1972. The Dion and the Belmonts reunion concert, sensational. Yeah, that's after Elvis, the Sun Sessions. That's my favourite album.
So what are the other 6?
I've got that. I've just got it.
You told me about
In the wee small hours.
Sinatra.
So yeah, Sinatra. I've just got it.
I like the one I like better is the Songs for Swingin' Lovers.
That's great. That
Jesus,
too.
what a great record.
They're all great. They're all concept albums. He invented the concept album, an album with a prevailing mood. He invented that. People think it was like Pink Floyd or Emerson, Lake and Palmer or some cunt. But it was Sinatra. How to maintain a prevailing mood. And that's why I like the Wee Small Hours, because it's all regretful saloon ballads, which I've always liked that side of Frank. But I like the upful side as well, you know, Come Fly with the Nelson Riddle years.
Yeah.
Sensational. What's to not like about it? It's all bouncy and sunshine all the way in it. I love Sinatra. Obviously, I got one of his on the island.
So what are the other?
The Sinatra track is Moonlight in Vermont.
That's on the Wee Small Hours.
I mean, maybe, yeah, could be.
Right. What are the other 3 records?
How many is that? The other 3? I'm sure I got some evidence. Oh, Doris Day, the Black Hills of the late Doris Day, Black Hills of Dakota. And also, because I figured as a man I would miss the sound of a woman's voice, so I got a lot of chick singers involved.
Oh, nice.
So I got Doris Day, Ella Fitzgerald, Skylark.
I got the Ella Fitzgerald Gershwin songbook
great.
On vinyl.
She did all those songs.
And it's phenomenal. You got what gets me. So many incredible songs.
Yeah, that's right. She did all of those songbooks. It was a whole series of albums she did. I also had the Cole Porter.
I got that one, and there's a few of the other songbooks.
She sang them all.
By her, but the Gershwin one's the one I play over and over. Mm-hmm. It's my morning music sometimes.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great morning, any time of the day. She's got such a sweet tone.
Okay, so that's 5.
Beautiful tone.
So what's the 6th one?
Who were the others? There's another one. Was it Peggy Lee? Why Don't You Do Right? Possibly. Oh no, Jerry Lee Lewis. A whole lot of shaking going on. For obvious reasons. and of course, because I think on a desert island sooner or later you would wish to contemplate the eternal, alone as you are in this natural situation. You would wish, gazing out upon the eternal ocean, you would sooner or later wish to contemplate the very nature of eternity. And there's only one set of vocal apparatus that can possibly convey the nature of eternity itself. The nature of eternity itself is, there's only one set of vocal apparatus capable of conveying this. So my go-to choice, the one I would pick over all the others on account of the reasons aforementioned, How Great Thou Art by Elvis. How great.
Gospel record.
Yeah, wow. Sensational. An operatic start or end to every day.
And you said on this program you can also pick one book to bring with you to this island, aside from the Bible and Shakespeare.
Against Nature by J.K. Huysmans.
Oh.
It's the story of a cloistered aristocrat who's utterly jaded.
I hate when that happens.
He's winding down in a very elaborate way. But I won't spoil it for you. It's a book you'll never finish. It's not that thick, but it's so rich. You can only actually read it 3 pages at a time. Read the way he talks you through a painting. It's better than going to the art gallery.
Mm.
But I would say that I'm a man of letters. But really, he kind of talks you through the contemporary artists of his day. This is around sort of the decadent period of the 1890s, the time of Arthur Rimbaud and artists such as painters like Odilon Redon and Gustave Moreau, people like that. The symbolists, as they were collectively known, or the decadents, as they've been remembered as. Yeah, he can talk you through one of their pictures better than looking at that. If you read that and then went to see the picture would be an anticlimax.
Yeah. Well, I told you I've been watching all these Kubrick movies lately, and so I watched Barry Lyndon for the first time. And I didn't know that was a Thackeray.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
That was a Thackeray book.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was some book I saw of him a few years ago where like every chapter was snobs. It was like country snobs, city snobs.
Yeah.
And I saw it in a used bookstore and I didn't buy
But
it.
city snobs are a bit more gentle than country snobs. Country snobs are brutal.
Why do you say?
Oh, it's all like horse whipping underlings and, fucking the gamekeeper's daughter in front of his wife. Real brutal fucking baronial shit that wouldn't take place. You couldn't do that in a city. That's why I'm proud to be an urban dweller all my life. I'm sad. I'm glad. When Tony Blair was trying to ban fox hunting, I was all like, let them do what they fucking like. I don't care what they do in the countryside. I'm not a fucking country person. I don't care. What they do to fucking foxes. You know what I mean? Let them do what they like. I draw the line at Morris dancing and incest. But after that, let the motherfuckers live their fucking shit-beridden life.
What's Morris dancing?
You know what I mean? But you couldn't get away with that kind of shit in an urban situation. Somebody would call you out on it, and quite rightly so. And that's why I like to be a citizen. That's why it's Baudelaire for me every time, not Wordsworth. I'm not really a rural type.
Well, Wordsworth wasn't his works found after his death or something like that?
Wordsworth?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he lived in the kind of late, he was a kind of a bit of a wild nature boy type. They all were. Apart from, I don't think Coleridge was as much that. I think Coleridge liked to keep close to his dope connection. Whereas the others, it was enough to look at a bunch of daffodils. I think maybe Coleridge had to live, somewhere close to the dealer.
So Baudelaire's your all-time favorite?
He's my all-time favourite, all-time, because he's a citizen, you know, that cared about what he wore. You know, he was a real dresser.
Who are your...
He had a regular tailor. He had money and lost it. You know, he wasn't like an Howie Beast. He was the perfect dandy, really. He had that look, you know, that worn-out kind of great clothes, but a bit distressed. You know, frayed around the edges, but all the more sexy for that. Do you know what I mean? Like that guy out of the Tale of Two Cities. You know, the one that goes to the gallows. The dissolute, you know, dissolute, dégagé. That's the word, dégagé, you know.
What's that mean?
You know, dissolute, going to seed, running to the bad. You know, has been quite handsome, you can see. You know, the relics of a handsome man. The remains of a handsome man, you know. It's a great look, everybody goes for it. Keith Richards been dining out on it for the last 3 decades.
I learned a new great word this trip over, voluptuary.
Voluptuary, there you are.
Yeah.
That more applies to, as you say, the voluptuary, the flesh pots.
Addicted to pleasure.
Yeah.
And,
The Earl of Rochester, as portrayed by Johnny Depp in The Libertine. That's the apex of that word, isn't it? The voluptuary. He was the ace voluptuary, wasn't he? The Earl of Rochester. You seen that movie, The Libertine?
Yeah, well, I saw it when it came out. I haven't seen it in years.
Pox stuck to foot, syphilis. Syphilis stuck to hell. But they didn't care, they just infected the next person.
Yeah. Dirty bastards.
But that's the one thing, that's a great thing about fucking narcotics, you know, opiates is, it rescues you from the taints of lechery. You know, all them years when I could have been just fucking whoever I liked, you know, I was always interested in
drugs.
Yeah, I wasn't interested, you know, I was always like, had somewhere to be, or I was in a sedated position whereby, you know, I couldn't kind of get in up.
You said a beautiful thing to me when we were on the tour, that you said
really
that
sex.
you weren't always fully in the room.
No, that's right, yeah.
Like when you were...
Yeah, that's one of the gifts of narcotics, yeah. Yeah. Always, it's a handy thing, but any writer would go for that position. You know, you can carry on a conversation without actually being in, you know, ambidextrous kind of, you know. Wonderful.
Who are your...
I can't recommend it enough.
who are your other non-poet heroes?
Non-poet heroes. There's the thing. We've just got, I like Napoleon. I like Napoleon Bonaparte. Did some great things, modernised the whole chunk of Europe there. And obviously Elvis, who falls under the banner of poetry or wherever we want to put him. Elvis, there's Elvis and everybody else. So Elvis, yeah, Frank, obviously these people. I can't imagine life without, really. I don't know whether I would say they were heroes. You know, I guess a hero is somebody who sacrifices their life for the good of others.
Okay, well, who's someone that just pleases you repeatedly?
Well, Elvis every day. Elvis every day.
You told me Elvis never made a bad picture.
Never made a bad picture.
I said, what about Clam Bake? And you
I
go,
love
that was a brilliant
That's
film.
a great picture. That's the one he wore, that sky blue.
You know the outfits.
He wore
and the
that
colors.
black sky blue Harrington coat. He looked great on that.
It didn't need his plot. In
He had a great. He looked great on that. He never made a bad movie. His bad movies. Elvis's worst movie is like everybody else's masterpiece.
I remember.
What's not to like? Full of fabulous chicks.
And
Terrific locations.
And Margaret.
Punshups.
Yeah.
Punshups. Elvis. 14 count and 14 potential smash hit tunes. Elvis.
I remember when I was opening for you in Las Vegas and Los Angeles, after those shows, you said, I'm so glad that the show went great. You have no idea how bad that would have hurt me if the shows weren't good, because
absolutely.
all of my heroes had played here.
Yeah.
And I heard your words last Saturday when I played at the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Were you the same?
I had this exact same feeling. I was like, I was so jumping out of my skin with excitement
It
to be
really
there. But
means
like,
something,
Charlie
doesn't it?
Chaplin played on that stage in 1906.
It really means something,
Oh
doesn't
my
it?
God, The Who, Bob Dylan, The Stones, Prince.
Oh yeah, I don't care what anybody says. The placement, it really does mean something.
So that's the thrill I've gotten out of
Yeah, I
playing these
get that.
grand old English
Oh,
theaters.
me too.
But that one in particular, that in the Dome in Brighton, and I'm excited about playing in Birmingham tomorrow. But Jesus Christ, Shepherd's Bush Empire was the
Oh, it's got a kind of glamour all of its own.
while
kind
I
of
was on stage. It hit me a few times. I thought,
Edwardian
fucking Mick
glamour.
Jagger stood here.
Yeah.
Charlie Chaplin stood on this spot.
Well, when Mick
Prince.
Jagger, yeah, I tell you, when Mick Jagger stood on that spot, he probably felt as lucky as you did. It's got that kind of lineage, don't it?
Yeah.
Really
Perfectly
does.
designed Edwardian
Really does.
theater.
I mean, when I did the El Rey, I thought, I don't know who's played here, but this is such a great place, and it's so quintessentially Californian, and the name, just the name, just to be able to say I played at this place called the El Rey.
You know, I live in that neighborhood now.
I know.
So I walk by there all the time, and I
great
always
looking
think about,
one,
I opened for John Cooper Clarke at that
I'll
fucking
never
place.
forget
That's the
it.
only history I care about.
I'll never forget it. The El Rey.
So I think my taxi's coming soon.
Yeah,
So
you
I
got
think we got
one.
like 3 minutes.
You got one booked on, yeah.
What?
You got enough shit here.
Yeah, I'll leave you
I'm very
this.
digressive. No, I mean just with the interview.
Yeah. What's what do you think is going to be the big heartfelt? I'm kidding. The big takeaway from your memoirs. What's?
Well, I'm not even a third of the way through it.
Yeah. But of your life story, what do you think?
The bit I'm most interested in, obviously, is from the time when I began to choose my own clothes. That's really when my life began.
There you go.
You know, when I could control what I looked like. You know what I mean? And it happened quite early on. I got to say, I was very autonomous. I was always quite stubborn about what I thought looked good and the kind of misery I was willing to put up with in order to look the way I wanted to look, you know what I mean? And I'm sure I'm not the only person at my age that will tell you this story, you know. I'm sure everybody's got that same story, not just long hair, but just, you know, high-heeled shoes. You know, it's hard to convey now how easy it was to stand out in a crowd back then, you know. But if you had standards of excellence, but also a degree of self-doubt, you know, it was a very conflicted time. So you always kind of felt like you were under the cosh. But all this is character building stuff, isn't it? You know, it is, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, no, I grew long hair and I was started out on the southern circuits.
I remember you
was
with
called
long
a faggot
hair.
9 million times
I remember
while I was
your
on stage.
I remember
And
your
I enjoyed-
biblical hair.
Yeah.
You looked like King David as a boy. He was a pretty kid.
I love that line you said a minute ago. The vanity of small differences.
Yeah, you know. Oh, you're a Christian. What a Catholic or Protestant? You know, a Protestant, Seventh-day Adventist or Episcopalian, Episcopalian, or blah blah blah, Episcopalian. Die heretic. Die heretic.
Beautiful sentence though. The vanity of small differences.
Yeah, you know, like Trotskyists and Stalinists and, you know, that kind of, the left is full of this, riven with these small differences, the left of politics, you know, extreme left-wing politics is riven with these minor grievances that date back to the Spanish Civil War, you know. And, you know,
Yeah.
I'll never speak to a Trotskyist. I know because my dad was a communist, you know, and by default I was enrolled into the Young Communist League.
Were you really?
Yeah, you know, it's just kind of the nearest thing. But we weren't a my dad wasn't. Don't go thinking my dad was some kind of social justice warrior or nothing.
Yeah.
It was all about wages and holidays. Wages and holidays. You know, more holidays, more wages, less hours. Hours, holidays and wages. That's as far as the class struggle went, really. It went without saying that all this would always be here. So there was no requirement to be anti-racist or feminist or worry about the environment like the left do today.
Yeah.
If you were in the Communist Party, that wasn't a requirement, really. That was just sort of something, a distraction, a mere distraction. The main thing was wages, holidays, hours, working hours.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of communist my dad was, and the kind of communist I guess I was as a kind of working guy for a while.
Beautiful. The car's here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it, brother.
No problem.
You're a good man. John, I love you with all my heart. Thanks for having me over. You're a beautiful human being.
Tell me something I don't know, so.
Long may you run, my brother. Long may you run.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, karate kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend, you should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.